So all of you, welcome. Thank you for joining us to our event on female leadership. We'll tell you more. So we'll be speaking with Kate, who is, bear with me all, I know all of this, but she's a senior leader at Thermo Fisher Scientific. And this discussion will be facilitated by our own head of mentoring, Cheryl Miller, who is a leader herself. She's a chartered accountant by profession. She holds an MBA, and she's the co-founder of the Stiletto Network. I will say no more because I will leave it to Cheryl and Kate to introduce themselves properly and tell you. So 6:35, we promised that. I'm handing over to Cheryl, who will be hosting this event today. Cheryl, please.
Thank you very much, Darren. Thank you for that nice intro. And thank you guys for jumping on a Thursday evening. So this is going to be a fireside chat, fairly sort of informal and relaxed. So, feel free to grab that drink. Keep it lively in the chat. So, any comments that you've got, feedback, questions as we go, just put them in. We'll try to structure it so that we do specifically make time for questions at the end. So around sort of like 7:15, 7:30ish, we'll have like a full sort of Q&A, kind of session. But if you want to raise questions as we go and it kind of fits with where we are in the conversation, and we'll do that. So as Darren said, I've literally just joined the board of PWN London, looking after mentoring. I have been a mentor for a couple of years with PWN, and obviously I think it's a fantastic organisation, which is why I kind of jumped at the opportunity. So I'm organising an event in about a month's time, so I'm not going to go into much about me because you'll get to hear more about me. But so I'm really pleased to be hosting with Kate this evening. So when the fireside chat came up and it was kind of in the diary, I kind of offered to kind of host it and ask Kate some of the questions that I'm sure you'll all want to hear. I mean, I'm always fascinated whenever we have senior women in our midst, and I think there's so much that we can learn, so much to kind of motivate and inspire. So welcome, Kate. So Kate is an engineer by background, graduated from Oxford. I'm not going to go into too much of the detail because we'll get into it in the fireside chat. So Kate graduated from Oxford and has held a number of incredibly senior roles in organisations. Latterly, so Kate's current role, she's Global Operations Director at Thermo Fisher. And I always love it when women are in kind of operational and delivery roles, and not just the supporting roles. And I say this as an accountant, having been in support functions kind of all my life. So Thermo Fisher is a global multi-billion-dollar company, so this is a meaty job. This is some big responsibility. So Kate's been there for 2 years, and before that she had a stint where she was group director amongst a number of other roles at Cambridge Assessment. But I don't want to give too much away because we're gonna go into it in the chat. But interestingly, so when I came to this as an event, it was already kind of billed as female power and getting things done. And when Kate and I had a quick catch up, I was like, yeah, why is it called that? I'm not sure exactly why it's called that. So should we start there maybe, Kate? In terms
of... Thanks for the introduction, Cheryl. That's super, actually. It's a real pleasure to join the Professional Women's Network on this call. I'd like to keep it lighthearted. I'm happy to share. I always want to try and inspire people to go out of their comfort zone and try a bit beyond, because that's what makes life really thrilling. And you're right, the power of getting things done is what we decided to title this, because I think I was recalling that in operations, you're executing strategy. You're really trying to do it in a way that engages people. You build a team, you kind of stretch those targets, you celebrate success. But if things don't go right, well, you've got to deal with that too. And statistically, that's going to happen, right? So how do you get things done, particularly as a female leader, which, I've been in some male-dominated worlds, and it's whether you have a chip on your shoulder or whether you really try and, excel in that way and bring people around you. And I get a lot of questions of that. So I thought, gosh, if that many people are asking me, just in a colloquial and a mentoring point of view when I'm at work, if I can help at all by giving a few pearls of my wisdom, I don't know, such as they are, then I'm very happy to help on that one. And I guess the title that we said about this was, I was working at Cambridge Assessment, which is an examination board. It makes I was in charge of all the printing of the exams, the GCSEs, the A levels. You can imagine it's got to be absolutely precise. You know, your GCSE has got to look exactly the same as my GCSE and not have a speck of dust in the wrong place that could be a comma or a decimal point and make your exam paper wrong. And you know, this is life-changing stuff. People pass an exam and then their job prospects or passport applications you know, make a real difference sort of thing. So it's really high criticality. And being Cambridge Assessment, it's part of Cambridge University. There's some, you know, really big academics there and great thinking. It was a real pleasure to work there. I was there for 5.5 years, I think it was. And I was invited to a meeting. And I've got to admit, I was a couple of minutes late, and I kind of darted into this meeting, and there were 12 of these guys sitting at the table, and at the head of the table was this really knowledgeable professor who was, you know, a CBE, and he's, you know, and I walked in, he said, "Oh, thank goodness Kate is here. We'll actually get something done." And I thought, oh, okay. And it really tickled me, because I thought, you know, we all get things done in our little ways. And I don't know whether that's male or female, or it's just the type of person we are. But definitely, you know, there can be some prejudices along the way, and, you know, that can be annoying. So, you know, let's hit those head on and really try to think of ways that we can make things happen better.
Absolutely. And you know what, it's great to have that as a reputation, you know, in terms of in the workplace, to be seen as the person that gets things done. I think is quite, you know, all credit to you, to be honest. I mean, there is that saying, isn't there? If you want something done, ask a busy person.
Yeah.
Bonkers, but
well, that is true. And I'm currently at Thermo Fisher Scientific, which makes medical devices. And as you say, it's a $25 billion organization, 75,000 people worldwide. But it puts $1 billion into research and development. So it really does believe in its sort of mantra of, you know, really making the world cleaner, healthier, safer. And I can kind of rattle off all of the mission statements, but underneath it all, you know, we make a difference. We're saving people's lives. People take our tests, and, you know, it determines whether or not they're ill or not, and what course of medicine is going to go. That's quite humbling. And I do use that a lot for kind of helping people to realize what we're all doing. It's not just the same old job. There are people at the end of the chain here who really are depending on us. And whether it's making examinations, whether it's medical devices, that's quite garnering, I think, for everybody. And it helps people realize what the goal of what you're trying to do is to achieve. And it doesn't matter if you're male or female on that at the end of the day, because, you know, if you've got the right support around you, if you've really done that preparation before going towards a meeting, and I'll be honest, I've been to meetings where you know, someone has taken one of my ideas and presented that idea as their own, and that's really galling, actually. And you sit there going, thanks a lot, you know. And what do you do about that? You know, if other people know in the room that that's the case, you know, they'll be looking to see how you react on that. I will often, you know, ask an inquiring question on that, and they'll go, "Well, Kate, you probably know more about that than me." You go, "Oh, well, there we go." And so then the ball gets passed back to you, sort of thing. And then you know, but you do have to do a bit of your homework and a bit of your preparation before a meeting, to make sure you that you have people almost introducing you sometimes if you're new, because you know, people are quite touchy nowadays about not being offensive, and but also wanted to get their own point across. And, you know, there have been a number of times when I've walked into a room, and I'll be honest, people have gone, "Oh yes, the coffee. Could I have, you know, white with?" And you go, seriously, and I will just hold my pause. And I know that colleagues around me will go, "Actually, Kate's the director." Yeah. And it will be, and then people that are really embarrassed. So then the important thing to do is to make sure they feel comfortable, and you know, people realize their mistake at that time, and you can rise above it, really.
Did you want to say something, Darren, there?
No, I was just laughing. Yes, who hasn't had that happen before? It just sounded familiar.
Yeah, and it takes a lot to kind of hold your nerve and react, like, you know, and not overreact necessarily in those sorts of circumstances.
Yeah, it's because people will look towards you to see how you will react, particularly if it's crushing. I mean, as it happens, I don't drink coffee or tea, and that I think that's almost a deliberate. Then I don't have to go around and kind of get it for everybody else. I'm not trying to be rude there. I drink a lot of water and orange juice, and we'll use that sociability in a different way. But maybe it was an avoiding tactic not to have to get into that conversation in the first place. But
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And I think we'll come back to that, the point that you made around some of those dynamics in the meetings, because I think, knowing how to sometimes respond to difficult circumstances, particularly if, say, for example, you walk in and you are the only female, and maybe, if you're quite young as well. I remember when I did the speed networking event for PWN, it's quite a young group. So, if you are in those environments and it's in a STEM environment, and you have some of those challenges, we'll come back to that definitely in terms of just how to navigate those spaces.
Well, yeah, and actually a little point I learned from some colleagues of mine actually is if that is the case, that you may be feeling slightly anxious, apprehensive about a meeting, maybe there's people you don't know, or then getting there early and pacing the room is good. Yeah, you can always leave the room again and come back on time, but getting there and going, right, where am I going to sit? Let me just imagine myself there, and it's an empty room, or even just putting your pen and paper down at what I always try and see what's the seat that's going to be helpful for me. So like facing the door is a good one, because then you're seeing people coming in, they're not kind of coming in behind you and tripping up on your chair, sort of thing. One that's not directly in front of the chair, for example, but just offside, so that you can catch the eye and you can really help kind of some peace, as it were, and rather than being tucked on the corner of a table where let's be honest, this is again not a male-female thing. This is just a kind of, how do you command yourself in a meeting room and help get your point across? It's really important not to kind of speak with babble. If you don't know the answer, just be honest. Go, that's a good point, I'll make a note of that and come back to it. It's I think that honesty is refreshing, rather than people giving a bit of BS and just then making a fool of themselves, right? So, just go, actually, I don't know the answer to that, but I will come back to you. And then you've got to come back to them, of course. So that makes sense.
Absolutely. Brilliant. I can tell that we're going to get lots of nuggets out of this, some really practical tips, which is absolutely great. I just want to go back to the beginning in terms of some of the influences and how you got to where you are now, and particularly being in a STEM subject, which, in terms of the sort of gender balance, we haven't quite achieved it yet in a lot of the kind of STEM areas. So going back to the beginning, what were some of the influences on you and some of those kind of major turning points? So how have you ended up getting to where you've gotten to in STEM? When you look back, what was it that made the difference, do you think?
Right. So I did do engineering at university, and I did have a bit of a kind of eureka moment when I was doing my A levels. I must admit, I was doing maths, physics, chemistry, so I knew I liked doing science. I like the sums. I'm good with numbers, if you like, but kind of didn't really know what I was going to do with them. And I went to what they called a Women in Science and Engineering Day. And it was up in Birmingham University, I remember, and it was just a kind of open day to go and have a look. And I was thinking, this is a bit naff, this is going to be really condescending, and it wasn't at all. Actually, I was with lots of like-minded females who were interested and curious, but didn't know what was out there particularly, and that gave me quite a bit of confidence. And I thought, there's lots of inquiring things here. And then I suddenly realized, of course, that engineering is about kind of understanding how things work, really being able to make a difference, whether it's an environmental difference, whether it's building something. There are so many different strains of engineering. There's electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, manufacturing engineering, and the world of factories really enticed me. It's like fast-moving consumer goods. So my first job after, during my degree, actually, I worked in summer placements in Kana Metal Box, as it was called, now called Crown Packaging, and it's a metal packaging firm for food cans or drinks cans. And you can imagine it's quite a noisy factory. These metal cylinders get made quite quickly, and it's shiny metal that flashes past. And it is 98% male workforce, and I just got a real buzz out of this, thinking, we can make 1 million cans a day here, and this is a throwaway item that people take for granted. But if we get it wrong, we're going to poison people. So we've got to get it right. And of course, everyone, we don't get it wrong, right? So it is taken for granted, but the precision in the kind of number of beads, as they call it, on the side of if you've got your baked bean can, there's kind of ridges down the side, they're called beads, and the radius of those and the number of those and how much they're bunched together. There's a huge amount of engineering and science that goes into that, and that was just fascinating to me. I thought, wow, you just take it for granted, and by having those beads, you can get away with having thinner metal, which makes the whole can cheaper, and it means it's less harmful on the environment, etc. And metal is 100% recyclable, etc. So it opened my eyes to this, and I thought, you can kind of feel something inside you that gets excited about it. And we really shouldn't start talking about tin cans, because I could go on all night about about the joy of it. But that's the thing: if you find something that entices you, going into factories that, as I say, was all male on the shop floor, that's just the way it was, right? I had my quick fit a boiler suit type of thing too, and I would go up to the engineers and say, can I understand how this works? Can you show me how it works? And you'll be surprised how many people are really happy that someone's interested and curious, and you're not being judgmental. You're not, you're just asking, I want to learn. And I had a placement I remember up in Liverpool in Aintree, a factory, and I walked in, and they'd had a poster on the wall saying, Kate is joining us for 3 months, and welcome to the site, that sort of thing. And I walked into this workshop, and there was a very large gentleman who said, Kate from Oxford, them stuck up gits up there. Well, I'm not going to even try the accent, actually. It was a Liverpudlian accent, of course. But like, you walk into the room and they're saying, stuck up git. Oh, great. What do you do? And I sit there thinking, well, I'm either going to turn around and never go into that room ever again, and what I did do is I walked up to the gentleman and said, I'm your stuck up git from Oxford. Can you tell me where the canteen is? And he went, well, it's actually it's our break now. Do you want to come too? I'll show you. And from then onwards, we just hit it off. And I was interested and curious, and there to help him at the end of the day, of course. And then he effectively, promoted me to others, saying, actually, she's all right, Well, I assume you said something like that. But so
yeah, I mean, I can, and and everybody that's listening, I can literally see and hear the passion for what you do, which I think is so important. That just comes through so much. Where did your passion for kind of like the sciences and engineering come from? Where did that start for you?
Yeah, so I think people's dads have a lot to do with it. My father was very keen on making sure I could add up properly and not get swindled if I got the wrong change and things like that. He wanted his daughters to not get railroaded. So I think I must have become quicker on the numbers early, and then of course then you have that nice fulfilling prophecy that then you're more interested in it and you want to learn more on that way. And I think it's the same much. I have 2 daughters myself who are teenagers, and we were really keen to teach them to read really early, because then they could learn themselves and then learn from a book themselves, and then it's a nice fulfilling prophecy that they wanted to learn more and would never be lonely, and they would be able to help their friends, and that makes them popular. Well, I don't know if this theory is true, but they seem happy, and I was very happy too. So yeah, my dad had a lot of influence on saying, actually, it's okay to be an engineer, and he had in his pocket a brass a brass bearing that I'd made, and would kind of proudly show his friends, and I kind of wince now I think about it, because I'm not sure I know how to make it now, but I manage people who are engineers now, and I don't use the engineering so much per se, but that's necessary to have that skill behind you.
Yeah, I mean, I just think certainly, particularly with STEM and where we've got, the absence of kind of women going into those fields, it is important to have those advocates and people that will actively kind of push girls to kind of realize that those are viable options, what I mean, even though they don't see that many role models in the field.
Yeah, and I think when in my early career, in those factories with the tin cans, for example, I did try to adopt a mentor in that way. I'd look at you know, the technical director and go, yeah, I want to be that one day, you know. And so I would make sure that I would bump into him to say, you know, can you tell me a bit about, you know, how you started here? And of course, again, people love talking about themselves, don't they? So he would find someone that was interested, and if you're half bright, then you're going to help him achieve what he's wanting to achieve. And then he'll start saying, actually, this lady's quite good, she'll help you out on this, and take you under their wing, actually. And I had that a number of times, actually, from places. And I think it's really important to be clear what you want. You know, I had a goal that I wanted to be a factory manager by the age of 30. And that was kind of, wasn't sure how I was going to get there, but that looked fun. And, you know, Metal Box, in its 75-year history in the UK, had never had a female plant manager. And I was 31 actually when I got that first role. I'd had a couple of maternity leaves, so I think that counts. Yeah. And the thrill of walking into a site, I still remember it today. It sort of makes me tickle. Is this huge site, thinking, oh, this is my site, I'm accountable for it. Yikes. And I don't know how to run any of these machines, or and all that self-doubt that you have, and you think, but all of these guys have been here longer than I've been alive, and they do know how to do it. So, you know, how do I help them with some guidance and some vision and some goals of, you know, what is it we need to do? And, you know, I very much adopted, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to say what we need to achieve, and you're going to tell me how we're going to get there, and then we're going to make it work all together. And I'm quite a visual manager on that. I'll have a lot of, you know, visual charts and kind of success stories. And then when we hit that number, again, when we hit that number, let's celebrate, and you know, using the red and the greens on the boards, you know, it doesn't have to be screens, it can be just kind of post-it notes, you know.
Keeping it low tech. Kate, do you want to just go on mute? We've got a budding STEM engineer there, I think.
Fantastic.
All about STEM. Let's just touch there on self-doubt, and we talked a little bit about this. So let's just touch on, you know, those feelings of, oh my gosh, can I actually do this? You know, whether we call it imposter syndrome or whatever it be. How has that kind of reared its head in your career, and how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, actually. The imposter phenomenon was a real revelation to me, actually. I only heard about this about 4 or 5 years ago, and I was reading something about, you know, the imposter syndrome, where women, in particular women, but actually it's men as well, to some extent, but much more prevalent in women, really don't believe in themselves and don't believe that they've got there on their own merit, that there must have been some freak thing that, you know, they've managed to scupper their way into. And I read that and I thought, that is me. I always think, oh, I only got it because ... or they must have felt sorry for me, or I was the last one left, or they were just trying to fill a quota, you know, that sort of thing. And then you sit there thinking, what is wrong with me? Why do I doubt that? I'm actually quite good at what I do, aren't I? Oh, well, maybe I just got away with it this time, or maybe it's because you know, everyone else, you know, had fallen asleep during that lecture that I did better, you know, and it's really debilitating. It's really like, it can hold you back. And I've really thought about that. Like, it was I remember reading about that imposter phenomenon, and literally, you know, sort of going home on the train at that time, and just going, right, this is not just me thinking this. There's lots of people who think this. And however kind of, you know, however many qualifications you have behind you, however many times people say, oh, you're doing a great job, you know, you're undermining yourself. So how do you get out of that? How do you get out of it? Well, I've really thought about this, actually, because I did do an MBA with INSEAD 2 years ago. And INSEAD in Fontainebleau has its big USP is bringing lots of different nationalities all together in one place. So, you know, I was in a class of 100 people with 30 different nationalities. It was absolutely fascinating. And of course, some nationalities are slightly less British when it comes to being understated, and they will just say things, they will just blurt it out. And it's quite refreshing, actually, I have to say. And I remember on that first week of that INSEAD MBA, someone saying, you need to click out of that imposter phenomenon. You're just good at being a general manager. I would work for you. And I went, wow. And this was a guy that I'd read his CV and thought, blimey, this guy is amazing. I can't believe I'm even in this class right against this, right alongside these guys. And I was really humbled by that. And I thought, actually, everybody is human. And the only way to get through all of this imposter phenomenon is to actually push yourself out of your comfort zone and go into groups where there are really inspiring people that you can, that you think you're going to be looking up to, and then you join with them and you think, actually, I'm alongside them. I'm not looking up to them. This is great. We can all learn from each other. Everyone is at that same level. And it takes some guts to go out your comfort zone. I'll be honest, even doing this webinar with you is out of my comfort zone. I don't naturally volunteer to go online like this, but I thought, I'll give it a go. What's the worst that can happen? Well, so
and it's so important, honestly, Kate. I mean, I've come across lots of people in my career, at sort of C-suite level. But I mean, your resume, and having spoken to you before and now this evening, I mean, you are the real deal. Clearly, you do get things done. It's kind of quite obvious, and so it's interesting that even you would kind of be experiencing sort of some level of self-doubt. I guess it's reassuring because we're all human.
A really important thing is, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? Yeah. So when we start off in new areas, listening twice as much as you're talking is really important. And perhaps when people are nervous or trying to prove themselves, they can talk too much, right? But you're listening twice as much as you're talking means that people are, what's she got about her? Is she taking it all in? And then, you're taking in what's happening around the group. People are thinking, she's a thinker. She's assessing it. She's listening. She's taking it on board what we're saying. And things might not be right, might be wrong, might be right. You're trying to really give that confidence that it's only going to work as a team. And I do think one of my best skills is building a great team of people around me, around whatever it is we're trying to achieve, so that everyone is clear about what bit they do and what they're going to excel at. And if I'm the leader, then and it all goes wrong, well, that's my problem. I'm the leader. I take the fall for that, right? But if it goes right, it's the team. And if you have that attitude, it's the team success, then everyone wants to pull with you and make sure that they don't let you down, in which case it's going to succeed, whatever comes your way.
Definitely. I mean, one of the things I was going to ask you about, which you touched on in terms of your MBA from INSEAD, was kind of what led you to wanting to do that, because obviously you're already incredibly successful. But actually, before we get onto the MBA, what I'm picking up on is you've got some incredible kind of like interpersonal and management skills, and kind of maneuvering through an organization and getting things done. Where did you pick up all of those skills? Were there specific mentors along the way? Is it just literally by watching?
I watched. I looked at people that I admired. It could be like a dozen different people, and go, I like that little bit that he did there, and I just like the way, like, even if you're walking around a room, where do you put your hands? If you put your hands behind your back, and they're right up against your, we're on video, aren't you? If they're right up against your elbow, then you're looking all kind of uptight. And particularly I'm thinking about a noisy factory environment where people can't hear you anyway, so it's all visual, right? Or if you're looking kind of walking with some good stride and your arms behind your back, just hand in hand, and you're actually, pre-COVID times, putting your hand out to shake hands, then you're taking that initiative and walking with some pace. I mean, if this is a professional women's network, good shoes do matter, actually, because it helps you feel confident in your stride and your walking. I think, I don't think this is just me, right? But it's like you're looking at your shoes, you're walking with it, you feel kind of $100 million, don't you, sort of thing. And it helps you with that poise to feel confident. even if you're not inside you're screaming, right? But outside you're just trying to give that air of, I'm just going to listen, and I'll when I say something, it'll be really helpful, and it'll be inquiring, it'll be supportive, and then people go, she's someone who's going to help me achieve what I need to do. I'm going to go with her, like, in which case, him or her, it doesn't matter, does it? It's like you're really looking out for people, and I don't actually bring in too much of the kind of personal stuff about people's families and things like that. Obviously that's really important for people's happiness, but you don't want to go talking about that all the time, because you're at work for a reason. Yeah. So it's acknowledging people have, really interesting families and home life and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we're here to get a piece of work done, and that's the joy for achieving that, and giving people the credit for that. So I mean, we were just talking before we started this webinar, I've just hosted Thermo Fisher Scientific's divisional board at one of my sites, and I really enjoyed that, actually, but there's a lot of preparation to make sure that it looks smooth, right? And whilst I am the site lead for the whole of the site and the global operations director, and clearly it's my show, as it were, I did about only 10% of the standing up in front of everybody else. I was fronting all of my team, and I coached them. I made sure they felt confident about it. Everyone saw everyone else's slides beforehand. We did some tweaking, and then you can do it, Becky, go for it, type of thing. And then Becky would stand up there, and she, we'd give her a little kind of wink in the eye. And of course, all the directors from the divisional board could see that I was trying to really bring the strength of these people forward, and they thought, whatever happens on this plant, it's going to go well. Well, that's the impression I was trying to give anyway. So hopefully that was successful. But all the team were there, and they were all pumped up to kind of make it happen. And that means that we'll get investment, we'll get the resources we need, and the recognition that I was trying to get for this particular plant. And hey, that's fun, isn't it? Serious business, but you have a bit of fun along the way, right?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. Your kind of description there of watching people, watching other successful people around the organization and how they maneuver and how they carry themselves. I remember a story, kind of seeing somebody through a glass office pacing around a room before a meeting. And he was actually, I found out, going through the main points that he was going to make in a board meeting. And I thought, wow, so people don't just go in and wing it. Do you know what I mean? People actually think, well, this is what I need to kind of get across. So I think you're right. Picking up on what other successful people are doing in an organization is a great way to learn, definitely.
Yeah, it is true. And one of the things they taught us in INSEAD, which I remember at the time was absolutely cringing, but I do it. If you go into the bathroom before you have a big talk or a big speech, and literally do that, looking at the mirror and go, I'm good at this. I own this space is the phrase, which I have to say, saying it now just sounds, as I say, cringingly naff.
Sounds very American.
Yeah, it is. But if you're by yourself and you just go, come on, I own this space. At the end of the day, I might not have all the right answers, but I've got all the information that I can make a decision on at the moment, and in which case that decision is the best decision I can make at the moment. And if I don't know the answer, I'll go and find it. But really, really helping people, give that piece of confidence to work with you rather than feel afraid that you're going to stab them in the back, or, and I've worked for people that you just don't feel safe with. You don't feel psychologically safe with. You think at any point they're going to be, rubbishing you. Well, who wants to be with someone like that? So, being really careful not to do that yourself, and to be very, very honourable to people, because they may not agree with you. That's fine, but try and find out their point of view and why that is the case in that case.
I love that. I think, guys, if you take one thing away from this evening, I think just that, in terms of prep, when you're going into those challenging spaces, because sometimes things like, board meetings and project and program meetings can feel quite challenging, and sometimes you feel as though you're going in to get a battering. But doing that beforehand, just kind of look in the mirror, I own this space. That is perfect. That's perfect. So what was it that made you actually embark on your MBA, given that you'd kind of already reached the pinnacle, so why do an MBA? What was the want there?
Well, I was at Cambridge's assessment, and I'd been there 3-4 years, they had an appraisal system where I'd achieved the top 1% appraisal rating that had never been given to directors in 7 years, I was told. And again, I was like, wow, really? Like, and as you say, I was kind of like, oh, I must, it must have been a fluke or whatever. I was completely, they must have just statistically wanted to make sure one got given out in 7 years, rather than actually maybe I was quite good at what I did, like sort of thing. Yeah. And my boss at the time was quite close to retirement, actually, and he was quite honest with me. He said, I want to keep you until I retire. So I'm going to suggest you do an MBA because that'll keep you going, or not that you. And I was thinking, oh, all right. He said, but aim high, aim for, an internationally recognized one, because you can do it. So as you say, it was a bit of mentoring from him and believing in me way more than I believed me. So I went off to I remember going off to on the Eurostar to the interview in Paris, and I met a few other ladies who, again, their CVs were just stellar. And I was like, oh, they were COOs of pharmaceutical companies, or a CFO of startups and tech businesses. And I was like, why am I standing here? And yet when we were having the nibbles and the drinks, you just sitting there. And I remember this lady, a lady from Lithuania, and she came up to me and said, what do you think? What do you make of it? Will you apply? And I was like, well, I will if you will. And she went, okay. And I was a bit like, well, this is mad. Like there was no way she wasn't going to get in. She was fantastic. And I now, in hindsight, discover that she felt the same about me, which felt really funny. So we had almost this little pact about, right, you go for it, I'll go for it. We can always turn it down. Like, what's the worst that can happen? And then we both got in, and we really enjoyed it there. And that was, I was just turned 40, actually, and I have to say I wish I'd done it when I was kind of 37, 38, which is the average age for executive MBAs, because it's like, you do all your education that takes you for the first 20 years of your career, and doing an MBA right in the middle of your kind of like with another 20 years to go, if you like, was a really good boost just to be able to go, right, different ways of thinking, looking at giving yourself some time and some space to really not be worrying about running around your kids and kind of tidying up your house. And I did used to go off to the MBA sessions. They were 1 week every 6 weeks for a year and a half. I used to go a couple of days beforehand, just in order to compose myself and kind of get into the mode of, right, this is a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of investment, and I'm away from my family. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity to really think about, what do I want to do next, and where do I want to get to, and kind of be kind to yourself. You need to give yourself a bit of space for that. And that's when I then joined Thermo Fisher afterwards. So yeah, I was really pleased about that.
Yeah. So it almost became a bit of a stepping stone into your next sort of career move, I guess, transition.
Yeah, it opened my eyes to what else was out there, if you like. I felt I'd kind of reached as far as I was going to go at Cambridge Assessment. Very much enjoyed it, but it was a not-for-profit £400 million turnover place, and of course Thermo Fisher is several orders of magnitude bigger than that. And I didn't know anything about the pharmaceutical world and there's that thing that about with job descriptions, when women look at a job description and men look at a job description, men I don't know if it's true, but it kind of it resonates with me anyway, that maybe men only feel they have to have 60% of the qualifications and they'll go for it, and women feel they have to have 98% of them qualifications. But
it's
again,
it's very true.
Yeah, well, I was amongst so many other people thinking, actually, having the right attitude means that is important. I'm running some plants right now, microbiological plants. We're making COVID tests. We're making extraordinary medical devices and testing kits, and I can't even pronounce them, I have to say, but it doesn't matter, because there are experts there who are microbiological, I can't even say it, experts. And my contribution is the operations and the leadership to be able to really get everyone on board of what we need to achieve and get all the metrics. So I would never have thought it would be safe to be able to join a business where I didn't understand the product 100%, but I learned something every day, and my contribution is something that someone else can't contribute. So hopefully that gives everybody some confidence that they can make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great testament to the transferability of skills and not necessarily limiting yourself to, you know, maybe a specific industry that you've been in for, you know, kind of 5-10 years or something, because you've always got skills that you can bring along to another organization. I want to come back to something that you talked about right at the top of the chat, which was around having people I always call it having people in the room that will speak up for you when you're not there. So having like allies and sponsors, etc. How do you go about getting that sort of support in the workplace?
Yeah, so again, it's about doing your homework about, you know, who is going to be at a meeting, if you're going to be in that sort of situation, what sort of information, what level of information do you want to pitch it at? I think a lot of people get that wrong, actually, and you know, they're so in the woods, or they really want to kind of demonstrate how hard they've worked. Well, that's not the point. It's not how hard you've worked. It's what people want to hear, whether they're at the sort of helicopter level or whether they're wanting the sort of strategic view. So really pitching that level to the audience that you're going to be at is important. And then, of course, you know, who's going to be in that area. I will often just be very blunt about it. I'll just phone up, you know, a couple of days beforehand saying, you know, this meeting on Thursday, I'm thinking of raising this. What's your thoughts about it? And then you can hear what their thoughts are, which again, people like to give their thoughts. It might actually help influence and shape your own thoughts, but it also means you're sharing your thoughts so that when you go to that meeting, you know, a number of times people have said, yeah, I think Kate agrees with that. Didn't you have something and they'll help bring you into that meeting, you know, if you're having difficulty having your voice heard, for example.
Yeah, that's a really good practical tip. I remember I had a conversation once with somebody, a mentoring conversation. They were talking about meetings where maybe you constantly feel as though you're being talked over, or where you just have got the nerves whereby you literally don't speak or you don't feel that you can contribute. How can you get past, you know, those kinds of nerves? How can you prep yourself to be able to kind of speak confidently in a meeting?
So again, I was giving some sort of literally in front of your bathroom or the bathroom mirror on that situation there. I think you've got to make sure you're bringing something valid to the conversation. You know, again, not speaking for the sake of it, because you'll just get, you know, talked over because that's not relevant. You can use visual management rules on the, like, have something written down and go, actually, does this help? Or when you're listening to other people, if people aren't listening to you, you can grab the pen, the power of the pen, and be the one that's, let me just make a list of this on the board. And then you're actually controlling what's going on the board, actually, which means you're picking up on everybody else, what they're saying. You may not be saying anything yourself, but you're picking up on what they're saying, and you're almost commanding that situation. I'm just going to make a summary of this, or I didn't quite catch that. You know, Bob, what did you say on that one? Okay, how do you spell that? You know, that if you're getting stuck, you've got to kind of physically move out of that position. Otherwise, people are just talking across with you. You know, you're in a rut in that case. So you have to break out of it, I think, either by doing something different rather than just chirping up, because that's not going to help at all. You just have to do something a bit different. Let me just make a note of this, and can I just make a list of this? And you said that bit earlier, and repeat what someone else might have said also helps get you into a conversation. You know, so you know, Mark, that was interesting what you said on da la la la. I also think da 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 da, and that's so you're kind of helping create an alliance so that people want you to be talking because you're supporting what they're saying, and then building on your own point.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be opening up for questions very soon, guys. So if you've got any questions, start to put them in the chat right about now, and we'll kind of get into those. So any from yourself, Kate, any kind of like significant lessons that you've learned that you would kind of impart to us? You know, what are some of the big things that have really sort of made a difference for you?
In what way?
In your professional career.
In my professional career,
yeah,
you know, don't try too hard, but definitely if you say you're going to do something, you've got to do it. You know, at the end of the day, if someone senior is asking for some information, you know, obviously put it to the highest priority that you're going to do that and do a good job with it. Try and add a little bit of value to it. So, they might be asking, what percentage was, the on time in full figure yesterday? 95% is probably the right answer. But if you say it was 95% because we missed on the 5% on this one, and the previous day it was 98%, and we're expecting 98% today. Oh, okay. So, it's trying to be useful in that way, I think. I think if you say you're going to do something, do it, and do a bit extra. I do use this mantra quite a bit, that I do serious business, but you've got to have a bit of fun along the way. I mean, we're all going to be working till we're 70 at this rate, aren't we? So, we really have got to have a bit of fun away. If you want to have good people can choose where they're going to go, right? So if you want them to work with you, then make it have a bit of sparkle in their life, right?
That is a sobering thought. We are going to be working till we're 70, guys. So just buckle in. And have you got any regrets in terms of, any particular career moves, or, things that you wanted to do in your life that you never had the opportunity to do? Any regrets?
Well, I am quite a half glass full person, actually. If something doesn't go right, I generally do try and find a silver lining to it, that you learn to move on. Probably I had an early regret when I didn't apply for a role, because I was a bit like, there's no way I'm going to get that. And then somebody got it who was really not very good. And I thought I could have done a much better job than that. And I was a bit like, damn, and I got a, sort of a short, sharp shock on that one. So the following time, a role came along, and I remember thinking, there is no way I'm going to get this, because a far more qualified gentleman is going to get that. And he did. However, the point about applying meant that I was waving the flag and saying, I'm interested and I'm interesting, sort of thing. And what really came out of that was I didn't get that role, but they made almost a new role for me, saying, we didn't realize you had certain talents there, and we think you'd be really good at doing this, and we're going to form a role for you and then work alongside that person. And I was like, hurrah, and that, I hope, it would be a really big takeaway of this session today. Is, it's a bit kind of no guts, no glory. Give it a go. Give it a go. What is the worst that's going to happen? Yeah, you might not get it. You might look a fool, or it might be fantastic, and bring things that you would never expect, just because you've waved that flag and you've given yourself that opportunity to have a voice.
Absolutely.
And I must be honest, actually, when I now have internal vacancies within my own plants, if internal people apply for that as well as external, I will always, nearly always, bring the internal candidates in for interview, because then it's a training session for them, male or female, actually, to help them realise if they don't get the job, it's because the job is much, much higher, and how could they get there? And that's quite a lot of investment to do that, but actually you can be surprised as well. People who may not present well, or very, very nervous, but they're super sharp and they're really good at something. They just need that little opportunity to be liberated. And if I've had that in my career, I'd like to make sure I give that to other people in their career as well.
Definitely. And talking about opportunities and the future of STEM and women in STEM in particular, have you seen any change that makes you more optimistic about the future of kind of women in STEM roles in particular?
Yeah. So when I did my engineering degree, there were 4 women out of about 110 of us, and it's funny enough, none of us sat near each other. It was almost this kind of unwritten sort of like, we don't want to all club together sort of thing. And I really remember doing my final year project was about sort of jet engines, and there were some super smart brains who went on to be professors and do PhDs and things like this, and one of them wrote on my card just as I left university, "You're the first female that I've ever worked with." And I was like, what a sad life that is, that poor guy, sort of, at the end of the day. And now I discover that engineering, for example, has 25 to 30% female applicants, and there's a bit of a critical mass there. And I sit there thinking, it's really important actually to have women on the selection board to interviews, partly because anyone coming to those interviews then sees that actually women in senior roles is a thing, right? But also when you're actually with those interview panelists, you're asking intelligent questions and also, taking a view from what you've just heard. It helps your credibility with, colleagues at your same level as well. So, that diversity actually helps bring in diversity, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Well, there's that saying, isn't there? You can't be what you can't see. And as much as I think there is an element of that, I also think that things like mentoring, plays a big part in kind of being what you can't see. But definitely, if you're bringing people into the organisation and they can see other women in those roles, yeah, it makes it more of a possibility. Okay, have we got any questions, guys, for Kate? We're almost out of time.
We have questions.
Yeah,
so I'm going to take them in the order in which they came. We have some time to do that. So Nupa has asked to you, Kate, how do you urge people who are yellow sunshine rather than blue, which is Insight's profile, to get things done? So basically, how do you manage the different characters within your teams?
Well, it's really important to have a good spread in a team, isn't it? You're not covering all the bases if you don't have people who are going to say no. I have a number of teams actually where I've deliberately brought in someone that is kind of whatever you say, they're going to say, oh, that's too difficult, that's never going to happen, sort of thing. Because actually you want to understand, in the population as a whole, there will be always doubters, and actually the best advocates are those that you manage to turn around and get them to be on board, to then also sell it and promote ideas as well. I'm not sure if that answers the question, but of course, the red, yellow, green, and blue. It's really, if you have a team full of reds, you're doomed, right? So, being confident enough to be able to recruit people who are literally different from yourself, or means that you're covering all bases to make a very powerful team.
Agreed. Anupa, did you have any, before I move to the next question, did you have any?
Yeah, I guess if you don't have the opportunity to recruit, but you're given a team where most of the people are yellow, and you are one of the blues, and having to kind of herd like cattle and move them in the direction that you're supposed to, any tips on how best you would do that?
Again, the visual management stuff is important. I do a lot of sort of putting pictures up and handwritten lists. It doesn't have to be polished and laminated. I'm just thinking of an example actually, that in my tin can days, we started bringing in some infant formula milk cans. Yeah, so infant formula cans are baby milk cans are really expensive compared to baked bean cans, right? And because of that, we needed all these gentlemen to kind of wear beard snoods and hair nets and white cotton gloves and wipe down all the lines with kind of alcohol wipes. And they were like, this isn't helping kind of run the line faster. It's like I've been here 40 years and you whippersnapper, you're trying to tell me what to do, and like this sort of thing. And so I said, well, hey mate, bring in some pictures of your grandchildren. Let's have a board up of everyone's grandsons and grandchildren, girls and boys, and that's the reason we're doing all these hygiene standards. It's not to be able to kind of make cans and kind of get them out the door. It's because we're feeding our children's children. Yeah. And I remember thinking, this is either going to completely bomb or it's going to go really well. And it went really well, and everybody wanted to show off and bring their grandchildren's pictures in, and everybody then embraced all the standards as well about kind of, I'm going to wear the cotton gloves because I'm on the special line with the baby food, So
thank you. Yeah, that helps. Thank you.
So instead of actually reading the questions, I'm just going to call on Lisa. You had a question about resilience. Please ask.
So I know resilience is an area that I need to work on myself. So have you had to work on your resilience, and if so, what have you done?
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Resilience is really important, because your knocks in life, I mean, are they going to knock you down, or are you just going to go, okay, I accept that didn't go well, grab it with your hands, hold it tight, acknowledge it actually, and go, yes, this is not good, I'm upset about it, it's really hurting, and then you go, and now I'm going to put it in a box and I'm going to let it go, because I'm going to learn from that, and next time it won't hurt so much, and next time it won't happen actually, because you're stronger for it, rather than constantly being in the shade of, oh, you know, everyone's going to think this. I mean, people don't. I mean, days move on, and it's another day. Tomorrow is another day. Yeah.
Thank you. Yuliyana has a question about fear. Do you want to ask that, please?
Yes, hello. First of all, thank you very much. What an exciting end of the day. Yeah, I wanted to ask you, what is the scariest moment you had in your career, and how did you overcome it? Of course, I'm referring to something that I went through. I had a new job 1.5 years ago in the contract manufacturing business. And I remember I was so scared the day before I had to start. I literally almost had a panic attack. And yeah, have you had that as well? And how did you overcome it?
Right, overcoming. It's a really good question, that, isn't it? You know, breathing is so important. You know, allowing yourself to take in deep breaths and let the oxygen go to your head. And I write a lot of lists actually. When I get anxious about things, I write lists about kind of, you know, what's going to help. What am I actually afraid of here? If I've got a tough decision to make, and you're afraid to make the wrong decision, then you can do all those kind of pros and cons and go the for and against for these things. And then it's such a relief when you've actually made the decision, because you've chosen one. And one of my little tactics is that I'll go to bed having made the decision in my mind for the, you know, A or B. I'll say, right, I'm going with A, and I'm going to bed tonight and I'm going with A. And when you wake up in the morning, if you're kind of, oh, do you know, I'm not feeling, I'm not sure I should have done that. So the following day you do the opposite and go, right, I'm going to pretend I've made the decision, I'm going for B, I'm going for B. And it's funny how it kind of works. The following day you go, yeah, actually I've got a kind of gut feel here. This is the right thing to do. So, you know, when I'm driving the car, I do the old sort of shoulder movements. I do the kind of, right, I can do this. 4 breaths are really good. And if we've got time to do 4 breaths right now, go, you know, that first one, you're going, yeah, I've done it now. 2, you know, and third one, you're going, well, here we are. And then you finally do the 4th one, and it puts you in a much calmer zone. And then it helps other people be calm as well. You know, because you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to get everything right. Accept that. Yeah. But also accept that if you're good at what you do, you'll be able to flex for that as well. So when something doesn't go right and a curveball comes your way, that you can go, right, I'm going to think about how I'm going to respond, and now I'll respond, rather than just get into a flap about it. Don't know if that helps.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to move along quickly. We have a few more. I'm going to call on Sandra. Sandra has, I think it's more of an observation and a question about what we said earlier about the female-male confidence. So Sandra, did you just want to ask your question?
I'll try. I'm already a little bit tipsy because you made me bring my wine.
Oh, so. Good. I'm so
That's all right.
Cheers. Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Fantastic.
I'll read what I wrote. So
yes.
I don't no.
Go ahead.
I work a lot with executives and help them in their career management and job search. And men usually, when they see a job, and I can only confirm that they're like, oh, see, I fulfill this, and that, we should apply. I'm like, no, you're not ready yet. Whereas women, they literally, they're ready to go 90%, 95%. They say, no, I still need a year to prepare because I'm missing this one point. And we're like, no, you're amazing. You're competent. You're a CFO. You're a CEO already. You should go for it. And my colleagues and I, we often struggle convincing really amazing women actually to go for it. What would you tell them? I mean, of course, we tell them a lot of things, but what would your take be on to get them to?
Yeah, well, I would always say to take the pressure off. You know, okay, maybe you won't get it because you haven't got that tiny 10%, which, as you know, we all know is totally irrelevant, right? But say, okay, yeah, accept, maybe you won't get it. So just use it as a training ground, you know, use it as a practice ground. And then next time when you do find one that's 100%, and nobody ever does, right? But you know what, then they'll go into that interview with thinking, actually, I don't have to try too hard, I don't have to push too hard because I'm not expecting to get it, but I'm going to use it as a practice ground, and I'm going to, and then funnily enough, they'll come across with a lot more confidence because they perhaps maybe will believe in themselves more. And I really would advise, people to you do need someone who's kind of making you feel good, right? And telling you that you're not as bad as you really think you are. It's like that is important, actually. And to focus on the things that they do bring to the party, and have those examples ready with stories.
We have managed to trick some of our female clients to just say, oh yeah, you just go for a trial run, and then they did get it. But it does bother me that women don't believe more in themselves.
Yeah. And that is the imposter phenomenon, isn't it, at the end of the day? So maybe it's what makes us, good at what we're good at other things, right? Because we're maybe more cautious in those areas. I don't know, but that's that takes all the whole tapestry of people in life, doesn't it, to get things that way. But I do have a little cartoon that I have stuck on my wall that says "No guts, no glory," and when I sit there going, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? I think, actually, when I'm on my deathbed, will I regret not giving this a go? So you do it the other way around, saying, actually, will I regret that? Oh, if only I'd done that. And that actually spurs me on quite often to go, right, I feel really scared about this. I'm really apprehensive about it. It's not gonna work for me, but if I don't do it, I'll forever regret it. And I remember about that job as well, about that person getting that job over me. And I thought, I didn't even apply. I should have applied. At least I would have known, So I who wants to regret? Regret's not a good thing. So
Here. Kate had a question for you on work-life balance. Kate joined us with the youngest member of PWN London. Kate, would you like to ask your question, please?
Hello. Yes. First of all, sorry about that, but it kind of leads into my question.
No apologies needed, please.
Sometimes that work-life balance feels really hard. Do you have any tips?
Yeah. So great name, Kate. Of course, it's fantastic, short for Bob. Work-life balance is tricky, isn't it? Because did you say you had a young one?
Yes, a little 1-year-old.
Yeah. So when I come home, I try and be mummy. I'm mummy, I'm wife. I really try and be quite rigid about I'm now going to go into my working zone, and now I'm in my home zone. So I think when my 6-year-old saw me putting on some makeup, she went, "Oh, mummy's going into her work zone," sort of thing. So you can't spin all the plates all the time. You just turn yourself mad, and you feel that you're letting everybody down. So my children, for example, know that they can text me at any time. That's absolutely fine. But if they phone, it must be important, and I will drop everything for them because they're phoning. Because when mummy's at work, she's in her work zone, sort of thing. And when I'm at home, I get criticized if I pick up my work mobile because you're now in home zone. So I think it's actually, you've got to be kind to yourself. You've got to actually be quite military to say, I am now going to do half an hour's work, leave me alone, I'll get it done, I'll be back at 6:30 sort of thing. And then you've got to come back at 6:30 and not let it drag on. Otherwise you can't it's not compartmentalizing your life. You end up being all things to all men and losing it, actually. So be kind to yourself and compartmentalize, actually, I think would be my advice.
Thank you. Daniela, please, over to you. You had a question on, well, ask it.
Yes, hello, good evening from Germany. Yes, so I think that it was at the beginning of the very inspiring evening when you mentioned that you entered the room and somebody said that now Kate is in the room and we get these things done. So I have the same, apart from many similarities of your past with mine, I have the problem that I can't get very well out of this trap because I am there to fix things. I am responsible for a specific area, and I am not they don't support me to move in a different area because they need me there. So
right,
this is where it's very difficult.
Yeah, no, this is a really, really important point, actually. It's very unfair to be held back because you're good at what you do. Yeah. But it's what a lazy manager would do, right? A lazy manager, she's really good, just it makes my life easier if I leave it. But actually you need something back, and the best thing to do is to grow your successor, to make sure you have what I call a right-hand person. Yeah. And that right-hand person means that you've got someone to bounce off. It also means that they are learning, and it means that actually they want your job is a marvelous thing, because then you can try and blossom up. It's easier for you to be released to do the more interesting things, and it doesn't have to be someone who's actually working for you. It's a right-hand person that's a colleague in crime, if you like, that you can that you can bounce off. As it were. It means, I mean, and when it comes to work-life balance as well, it means that when you go on holiday, you don't come back to 400 emails on a day sort of thing, because someone else has got you back. But if you keep saying yes to things, actually you'll keep getting asked to do things. So sometimes you have to say, no, I'm not going to be able to do that until next Thursday. Or so it's actually the way around. You're saying, yes, I will do that, but it won't be done until next Thursday. And people, well, I thought you were going to do everything. You do everything all the time. Well, actually on this one, if you want it, it'll be next Thursday. Oh, okay. However, you can ask my right-hand person and they can get it done, and therefore, there we are. So and it does take some guts to say no sometimes, but this is the thing about being kind to yourself and saying, I'm just going to run myself ragged if I do it all the time. So I did open saying, if you do something, do it properly and make sure you deliver it. But that means actually being helpful to define when you're going to do it as well. So, thank you for that. Thanks for the opportunity. I won't be able to do it until Thursday, but I will do it well when I do it on Thursday. Oh, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you, Daniela. Thank you, Kate. Do we have any more questions? We're going to be winding down now. Maybe one or two more. I know I have one. Does anybody else have something they want to say, or just ask Kate or Cheryl before we?
I think I've got one.
Please, Milena.
Yeah, I think I'm still formulating it in my head, so bear with. It's coming out. But I've personally found recently that I feel I was a lot more adventurous in jobs and all sorts of just jumping for opportunities in previous years, like younger years, and then recently sort of becoming kind of going into the adult stage of looking to buy a house, or if you have a house, you have a mortgage, and then all of a sudden you're a little bit more scaredy cat in terms of jumping into a new opportunity, and sometimes you kind of really need that. So
it's more, you've got more to lose, haven't you? Yeah.
But I don't know, it's a balance of, it's altogether more important that you're actually quite happy where you are, because it is now your lifehood, and that's what you're going to be doing until you're 70.
Well, your manager is your biggest influence, isn't it? Your manager is your biggest influence on your happiness. If they value what you do and they make you feel special, they do. There's that old adage, people don't leave companies, they leave managers, don't they? So if you have an inspiring manager that you can feel you're learning something off, that you believe in and you can learn from, then people do stay a lot longer. I stayed at Cambridge, as I say, because I had a manager that believed in me, and that helped me. But if I was tracking my career trajectory again, I should have left after 3 years, but I didn't. I did my MBA, and I'm really happy I did that because I had a good manager. But
Okay, Joanna, did you have something you wanted to say? No? Okay. Kate, I don't know if it's a question or an observation. At some point you said something about, in terms of your team, your view was, I'm taking a quote, I forget what we were talking about then. You said it's your role to just set the vision. You're not going to tell your team what to do. You're going to tell them what we need to achieve, and then they tell you how you do that. At what point did you learn that? Because one of the struggles that I have is, and I don't know if it's ego, is that I have to get involved in everything. It's not that I don't trust my team, But because I also then have to answer to my leadership team, I just have this anxiety, and I'm the one normally passing on the message. I get this anxiety that I need to know what everybody's doing, and I need to really go into the details. And then I find I'm working 16-hour days and I'm exhausted because. So at what point did you get the confidence in yourself and your team to be able to say, I'm not even diving into the details. We're achieving this. You go find the solutions, bring them to me, and I can corral anybody without.
Well, I guess it's a bit like we were saying earlier, when you're looking at other managers, I would not want to be managed by a micromanager. I would not want someone breathing down my neck the whole time.
Yeah.
And so therefore, I don't want to do that to other people. And if you spend a bit of time with people and understand what they are good at, then you can go, right, I'm going to leave this with you. And if you've still got that as kind of slightly obsessive side, and you just need to find out just what you can always do a kind of pre-meeting with them before the big meeting. Go, just run me past your ideas and what you're going to bring to this party. And then after a while, you don't need to even do that little talk on that one, because you know they're going to come to the meeting and have the psychological safety to talk openly. Yeah, I mean, I'm a self-confessed control freak too. I like to know everything is working perfectly, but you will just burn yourself out.
You will.
And nobody will want to work for someone who's kind of A, burnt out, or B, breathing down their neck. So you've got to suddenly make that twitch to, guys, this is what we need to achieve. And this is a tough ask, but all together we're going to make it. And I'm really, really try and be clear about the accountability of, Bob, you're doing this, Maria, you're doing this. I'm not quite like that, but it's like, but again, I do it, I do it with the, with the visual management of kind of like, right, who's going to take this? Maria, you're on that, okay. And if you need any help, we're all here to support you. And
absolutely, yeah.
But you are going to do this because your name's on it, and then kind of bring that together, and it makes life a much happier situation that you're trying to set that vision and take people out of their comfort zone. I mean, it's scary for people to come out of their comfort zone. What they're doing at the moment works, so why would I want to change it? And that's why you're giving them that safety net, saying if it goes wrong, it's my fault because I'm taking you out of the comfort zone. That's fine. But you know what? It's not going to go wrong because we're all going to make it right, and it'll be the team that makes it right. And little wins add up to big wins when you do things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was my question. I certainly don't want ego involved in being the last one to ask the question. If there is anybody who has one more question that they want to ask, please. Yes, we have one from Joanna. Joanna, do you want to ask that? This will be the final question, or do you want to ask it? Or I can read it. So, Joanna says, how would you describe your personal brand, and how important is it for others to understand your brand? How do you express it? Oh, and she apologizes, she couldn't speak.
Okay, my personal brand. So I did get described once as an enthusiastic achiever, and I thought that's quite good. I quite like that. I like to win. Of course I do. I like to hit those goals. And I think I bring a bit of energy for that, and enthusiasm has got to be genuine, hasn't it? Because people can see straight through someone who's putting it on. But that little mantra, as I say, about making sure you're doing something that really is meaningful. So it's pretty serious, but making sure it's a little bit of fun along the way can make things. I hope my personal brand is very much about bringing people on board and making them feel safe to be able to achieve some really quite dramatic and dynamic situations successfully, so that you have that pride.
Okay, thank you. Kate, thank you. I'm just going to hand over to Cheryl for a quick to finish. But before we do, Sandra had a suggestion that she put forward. She says we're a small group and here for a common reason. So what about inviting everyone to share their LinkedIn profile if they, of course, want to connect with one another?
Absolutely.
So how would we do that? I think, oh God, this is where technology fails me. Anyway. Cheryl, I'm going to give that to you. And we can wrap up as you think about that.
Thanks, Darren. Yeah, if anybody wants to share your LinkedIn profile, I think if you just literally go onto LinkedIn now, click on your own profile. Yeah, so Sandra's done it, and just like copy and paste the link and drop it in there, you know, if you want people to connect with you. That's a perfect way. So yeah, just in summary, really, thank you so much, Kate. I think this has been so informative. I think you need to do more of this. I think you've got so much for, you know, men and women to learn from in terms of how to navigate the spaces. Really, have you enjoyed it? Have you enjoyed the chat?
I have, and I'm trying to practice what I preach here. I'm out of my comfort zone doing something like this, but you know, thank you for making it easy, Professional Women's Network, and thank you everyone for all your questions. Delighted.
Been fabulous. I'm going to take away so many things from that. I'm giving people literally just 30 seconds to put their profiles in. In fact, what we can do is one of us can do a copy and paste, and we'll just kind of grab any of the profiles that go in. But yeah, I'm going to take so many things away from it. You know, no guts, no glory. I own this space. I think are going to be two of my favorites. Darren, did you want to say anything just to close up?
Just thank you all. Thank you for taking the time. It's Thursday evening. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Kate, for making the time. Yes, it was good to have this discussion. We will be having another event next month, so please look out for that. Please join us. But this was lovely, Kate. We thank you. And Cheryl, thank you for the wonderful hosting. I wish you all well. I wish you a lovely weekend ahead. And I hope we see all of you again, whether it's on LinkedIn or some other time. Kate has said she'd love to add hers. It's not working. Well, bear with you. I won't close the call. I won't close the call for a while. So keep adding your LinkedIn profiles and we can share that. And in terms of next steps, we'll have a communication on this. We'll connect with you. Sandra, you're enjoying that wine. Great. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Wishing you a lovely evening. I will leave the call open for a while for those who just want to drop in their LinkedIn profile, and we will, yeah, if anybody just wants to get that. Thank you all, ladies. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye, Kate. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. That was a good idea, Darren, to just leave it open for people.
Yeah.
To in. Good.
Sandra, thanks for joining. That was really nice. I am copying the LinkedIn profiles. I hope everybody has that. I'm going to keep.
Kate, thank you so much. It was
Well, thank you, Cheryl. It's you're an absolute professional at this, actually. Because as long as you get someone started, they can keep going, can't they? But so thank you for that.
No, it was brilliant. It was very easy. I found it very easy, and you know, it's been and I've been out of the, I guess, corporate space for a few years, and so, you know, kind of listening to you and hearing it just brought it all back. One of the roles that I did actually was I was what they call like almost like the executive support manager to the CEO, a bit like a kind of glorified bag carrier. So I sat in a lot of board meetings and was technical secretary to some board meetings and things. So much of what you said kind of resonated in terms of how to get things done, particularly in boardrooms as well.
Yeah,
that was fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you know, natural enjoyment of life does exude out, doesn't it? But
yeah. The CEO that I worked for, actually, he said, am I paying you just to have fun? You know, he said, you're having way too much fun. Yeah, clearly it was. Yeah, it's so important to have fun. Good.
Super. Well, thanks so much for the invite and thinking of me, actually. So I've ticked one of my New Year's resolutions off to have a go at doing this. So I'm very pleased.
And you quitted yourself very well. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
It was good to see everybody. All right, I'm going to close the call now. If anybody still wants to quickly drop something in. Sandra, lovely to see you. Yuliyana, thank you. Thank you, Cheryl. Thank you, Rashmi. And yes, have a good evening.
Will you be sharing the recording at all?
Yes, we will. We'll send a communication on this. But
yes, my husband and family were on strict instructions. They weren't allowed to listen in, otherwise being too embarrassed. But I would like to share it with my children.
Okay, we will. Rebecca will be in touch. We will.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye. Good evening. Bye.
Bye.
Cheerio.
Bye.